Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
It is the busiest time of year in Northern Hemisphere rugby, but we've managed to sneak in one weekend of the URC, and oh my God, there are storylines everywhere. Some people are going to be delighted, and some people are going to be very, very angry indeed. We'll find out who they are and more in this week's show.
You're listening to United Rugby Rewind.
Joining me this week is the Rugby ABC, South African Alan, Policeman Ben, and that's Kaelan. Good evening, gents.
Good evening, guys.
Right, there's that much to talk about. You know, we're back to URC coverage finally, instead of talking about nonsense European rugby or silly international rugby. So talking about proper rugby this week, and the words that were said before we started recording were, "This is one for the purists." I'm not having that. This is the round for everybody, in my opinion. And gents, as we record here on Sunday night, the thing that's just happened that is going to cause ructions across the world probably is Zebra have defeated Ulster. So if I bring my URC match center up here and I scroll down to the bottom, I'll be honest, I kind of assumed this game was a foregone conclusion, as most Zebra games are, but no. Zebra's first away win in how long? Do we know how long?
It's going to be
Their
at least
first away win in, I think, and it's Mark Robson who's on commentary. I think he said
4
30
years
away games. So
I've got 4 years I'm looking at.
yeah, so that's about right.
Mark Robson quoted you the other day.
He did
Kaelan.
actually. A lot of people did not realize what I said was just poorly worded. A lot of people thought I meant it like directly, like Orgus Neyman is inexperienced, but we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that later. Okay. We'll talk about the winners first. And look, Zebra aren't going to go first on many podcasts. So tonight's your night, Zebra. Guys, what's happened here? I didn't watch this game. What have Zebra managed to do? How did they get this W?
As the person who, for his sins, watched this entire game, it's funny. I literally just looked down at my phone. And the first notification is Zebra stun Ulster in Belfast, and that's what it was. Like, it was the ultimate sucker punch. Ulster could get nothing going. There is the context of a second storm in 3 days ripping through Belfast during this game, but like, Ulster got nothing going, and Zebra, kind of akin to the Munster game, and when they turned over the Ospreys, they just stayed at it long enough that their belief grew, and you could tell after about a half an hour, 40 minutes. It's like, this is on. Do you know, like, even if Zebra didn't look like scoring in the first half, this is on. If they can stay in this fight, they'd knock off two quick tries through Stivile Bravan and DeRay, and like, DeRay was man of the match. He was stellar. He was so good in this game. We should probably have a conversation someday about Italian nines, because they all seem to be at a very similar quality and all seem to be playing well. But yeah, for Ulster, it's just it's not a result you want to have. This is the DeRay try. Like, look at that. I got my players wrong. That's the 15. Sorry, I'm thinking the 9 also played well. I believe it was Garcia who was at 9. DeRay was at 15. But Ulster just never got going in this game. Like,
Oh, I know what went wrong.
Is it because of John Cooney?
Is John Cooney's 150th. That's what's happened. Like, they're always on landmark games, always lose. Alan Wynne-Jones lost on his 50th Wales cap, his 100th Wales cap, and his 150th Wales cap. He lost on all of those games. So it's just a fact of life. But Ben, as the nominal Italian representative on this pod, 3 wins this season for Zebra so far. 3.
Yep.
All against playoff teams last year, remember?
That's very true. Yeah, exactly. And it's unheard of that they usually scrape 1 or 2 wins in an entire season. But to have 3, it's fantastic for them. And it's just, I guess, it's slightly bittersweet that team is likely or most definitely will not exist at the end of the season. So it's going to be the most successful season in a number of years that they then move elsewhere and be rebranded, renamed, whatever will happen. But yeah, I watched the last 10, 15 minutes and they defended so doggedly. I know they conceded a very late try, sort of 8, 9 minutes from the end, but the last 4 or 5 minutes they went through the pods and they did turn over, but then they won a penalty sort of in the between the 10 minute and the 22 to obviously finish the game. But it was just sheer brute force and technique that kept them in it. And you think they're going to be flagging, you tend to see Zebre fall away after 60 minutes, but fantastic performance, I think. If any of those fans travelled over there, then they'll be having a party in Belfast tonight because they would have gone over there not expecting anything like that at all. So it's great for the league. And it means they're not bottom because Dragons stay down there. Zebre have won as many games as Connacht this season. But for a couple of bonus points,
what a grenade to just throw in there.
But it's true.
Egg, lads.
And with the way Edinburgh's away form has been this season, they could get a 4th win against us in a couple of weeks' time. So not holding my breath with that game coming up. But yeah, you just don't want to see whipping boys every season. So it's just great that Zebre there. There were a lot of missed tackles. Yeah, you just brought it up. That was brought up at the end of the match. Almost 60 missed tackles between the teams, which is phenomenal. But then you look at the tackle success.
Yeah, but you look at Ulster's. If that's accurate, like Zebre to miss 29 tackles having made 199. That's all right. But
that's a shocking 68% tackle success.
Ulster have missed a third of their tackles.
But Ulster's defence all season has been porous. Now, this game was more about losing a couple of collisions, greasy ball, falling off things. But as Ulster fan who I've referenced here a few times, Adam Latham will attest to, their defence is it's gone backwards. Johnny Bell is there and he's done all right at certain periods. He's maybe got them back going at times when they've done poorly. But like, this is an Ulster team. Look, they made 70% of tackles this week. Let's just say it's off by 2%. 70% of tackles this week. They conceded 3 tries to a very bad Exeter team last week. They conceded a bonus point to a Leicester Tigers team that looks to be a flash in the pan performance in 2025. They've been bad since the turn of the year. They got absolutely eviscerated by Toulouse and Bordeaux. There's no shame there, don't get me wrong. They conceded 4 tries to Munster and Ravenhill. And they threw away a 3-try lead over Cardiff in November, or at the end of November, I think it was. It's really gone downhill from Ulster quickly. And like, I like to defend them, and I do defend them a lot, and I did last week. But it's very hard to defend after a team loses to Zebre, because the 2 teams that lost to Zebre this year, Munster and the Ospreys, we tore into them when they did. So absolutely no. Yeah. And like, this was Zebre, as we said, first away win in 4 years. You can't lose. Like, I don't care if it's a hurricane coming through Kingspan Ravenhill, you cannot lose this game. Not when you're trying to chase top 8.
Defending Ulster now is like defending on a 7-on-1, wouldn't you say?
I wonder where you got that from. That's definitely not plucked from our WhatsApp group at all. But it is exactly that. And the 7 players that you're defending are all John Alomu.
Yeah. So for Zebre, I think the last season of their existence as we know them to be put in, and they should have picked up at least 1 victory against Benetton over Christmas.
Definitely,
as well.
Yeah.
That sensational. So congratulations to them, bravo. But Ulster, I had really high hopes for Ulster this year. I thought they would finish top 6. I was all aboard the Richie Murphy hype train, and it just didn't happen, lads. It just didn't happen, and I'm shocked. Now, is it just because of injuries? But surely, like, that doesn't excuse. We've run out of excuses at this point.
Injuries are a factor. Don't get me wrong. Like, they've had no McCluskey and no James Hume for pretty much half of their season. Like, James Hume's missed every game. McCluskey's missed a lot. Werner Koch is now injured, and he's a massive loss. Ian Henderson's gone in the Ireland squad. So they're massive. McCluskey in particular, because every time Ulster seem to have one of these poor performances, Stuart McCluskey never seems to be there. It's always when he's out. And he marshals
that back line though, doesn't he? I think.
Yeah, he could make a team who's going backwards go forwards. Like, he's that kind of player. He can just turn it on. I think Werner Koch is probably the straw that broke the camel's back though, because like, he is all action, he's all energy, he's all fight. He will get a team going. And that Ulster backline, I think Zach Ward played really well tonight, and to his credit, but it just hasn't looked the same now. And like, Postwick played well in fairness as well, but just hasn't looked the same. And like, the more pieces you take away, like, the more delicate it gets.
I think one of the surprising things is normally when you see an Italian team, what we're used to seeing from Irish teams is structure. if nothing else. You see them and they've got the handling, and okay, so there's a lot of bad handling, but that game they seemed really disjointed, Ulster, and you would normally expect to see that from an Italian team playing in that weather and away from home. So you might say, oh, Zebra, but it was a complete reversal. Zebra just didn't give up. Their scrumming looked good at the end. Their scrumming, they were on their scrumming. They were doing really well. They were confident in their set pieces. So that's not something we expect to see from the Italian teams, in general. I think something similar happened in Super Rugby with the Melbourne Rebels in their last season as well. They did really well. So they're making a real point and a real case for them, in the URC now. It's their last season. But Ulster really, I think I tipped them like top 6 at the end of the season, and they're my favorite Irish team. So I was a bit like surprised, really. But we're all happy for Zebra. Someone will correct me. But yeah, good game for them.
I had Ulster fifth as well. I think we all had Ulster like top 6.
I did.
Yeah.
Like it's been. But now look, if you had said to me that Ulster will lose McCluskey and Henderson and Herring and all these guys for long periods, I said, okay, fair enough, maybe just top 8, and I still think they'll probably get top 8 if they get everyone fit. But it's too much now, and
I think the problem as well is that the Welsh teams are doing so much better. So last season and the season before, they're in ninth place now. So you would say, okay, there's a couple of Welsh teams above them and Edinburgh, but then the South African teams have got games in hand. So now all of a sudden, getting into the top 8, if you're Ulster, looks a lot harder, doesn't it?
The door's certainly narrowing. I think
Mhm.
it's slightly ajar, but it's not what it would have been, what we would have expected for them a few months ago.
Let's move on then to a team that's pretty much got guaranteed top 8 already, and a team that I predicted would miss out on top 8, and I'm feeling pretty good about that prediction. The big ticket clash of the weekend: Leinster versus Stormers, the two most supported teams in the league, fan base wise, I believe. Anyway, if you go by attendances, I mean, Leinster 10 out of 10 in terms of wins so far this season. 36-12 was the final score. And if you just look at like the try scorers for Leinster in this game, 2 for Dan Sheehan, fantastic to see him back, generational player. Geordie Barrett, ever heard of him? And Osborne,
Andrew
Osborne.
Yeah.
Have we heard of him before?
He won a Grand Slam with the Ireland under-20s, I think, in 2023. He's Jamie Osborne's younger brother. Played all right, to be fair, but like, again, when Libbok goes off for the Stormers and it starts to take a toll, and then you have James Lowe, Dan Sheehan, and Geordie Barrett all heavily involved in Leinster's tries around that kind of end of the first half, early second half. You're like, okay, yeah, it's it's a bit mismatched here.
Yeah, just have a peruse of the stats, see which players
Yeah,
kind
we,
of
we
stood
have
up.
to give the Stormers credit as well, because if you look at all of Leinster's tries, it was the 10th minute, and then the next try was the 40th minute. So up until that point, the game was looking really interesting, wasn't it? And you could almost see, okay, they're defending really well, and then the floodgates just opened, and that's something that, when you're playing overseas, your defense has to be like on it. And we all expected the Stormers to lose, but I was hoping they'd come away with a bonus point, at least 1 point, or maybe within 7 points or something, a lot like the Lions did. But it was just that second half, just completely floodgates just open, and the Stormers were nowhere really. So at least they're going home now, so they should have a better, few games coming up.
And in one of the many tweets, as Hugh mentioned earlier, I did say, like, this Stormers team should be getting a result here in Dublin. Like, I did feel like they have to be trying to get, like, especially with Leinster's bench, John McKee, Paddy McCarthy, um, Charlie Tector, Cormac Foley, a lot of very young, very inexperienced players. And the Stormers obviously had a lot of box starting the game, a couple on the bench as well. And it's like, they have to get something. But it actually, as you mentioned there, after the second Leinster try, it never actually felt like they were going to get anything out of this game, which I think it's trademark Leinster. But, and Hugh, you might be quicker to agree on this than anyone else. It's probably trademark Stormers as well, that you can almost sense it from them when they're gone out of a game.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the lineups here, we've got the back rows up in front of us. So I think you would say that the Stormers probably take all 3 back row positions here. You got Dean Fourie up against Alex
Soroka.
Soroka. No disrespect to him, I'm not familiar with his game. Scott Penny up against Ben Jason Dixon. No disrespect to Scott Penny, but I think most of us would say Ben Jason Dixon would swing that one. And Evan Roos against Max Deegan. Again, Max Deegan, perfectly serviceable player, but Evan Roos is obviously a Springbok. And then you're moving into the backs. Luke McGrath, probably Liverpool vet, don't know much about him. Manny Lebok you'd pick over Ross Byrne. James Lowe obviously over Zas. The centres, I think you'd pick Leinster's centres. Ben Loader had some really good stats. We'll get to that in a minute. And Warwick Callant, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe not good.
Not so good. Can I go back for
Consistently
2 seconds?
inconsistent.
Ross Byrne was very, very good in this game. Ross Byrne got pelters last week to a point that Leinster had to address turning off comments on social media, and they were mainly directed at him for whatever reason. I don't know why. That online people are terminally online. That's but he had another really, really good game, and I might have been wrong at the start of the season when I said Ross Byrne will be Leinster's 10 at the end of the year, but he has still played every single game this year. He's played every single game they've played, all 14. So he's still massively important for them.
Didn't know that. So the thing that kind of jumped out to me when I was just having a glance at the stats is you look at the names that are popping up here. Defenders beaten top Geordie Barrett, meters made top James Lowe, offloads made top RG Snyman, number of tackles made 7 by Dan Sheehan, which isn't very many tackles, but still he's there. Just the Leinster are looking pretty unstoppable at the moment. And what do you think it says about the league, guys? With Leinster being 10 out of 10 at the top for ages, it kind of reminds me of the Pro 14 era where everyone just said, oh, it's a Leinster just beating up farmers, is what people used to say about the Pro 14. And we've had 3 good years of very competitive at the top of the league. And now I think partially because of the other provinces are kind of struggling a bit, Leinster are really stretching their legs ahead of the rest. Is this bad for the league, or do we need to just accept Leinster have gone up 2 gears this season?
I would expect that. I think Leinster have probably consolidated. I mean, they've made some really good signings. I think they've done really well in that regard, and they're working out. I mean, I'm sure Munster would love RG Snyman to have played for them the way he's playing for Leinster. So, but at the same time, a lot of the teams that were doing a lot worse last season are coming up, and you've got Welsh teams in the top 6, and you've got other teams which are there and thereabouts. The top 8 is looking a lot more varied than it has previously. So we know there's a lot of teams that are stepping up. And to go the whole season unbeaten, let's say they get to the final and win at Leinster without losing a game, that would be some historic achievement. I don't know if has that ever been done before in this league?
Not in the URC era.
Not in the URC.
No, but before that,
the second last Pro 14 era, Leinster went unbeaten. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, but the thing is, it's a different league now, and in the last couple of years, they've been tipped to win it, and they get to the semi-finals, a pretty safe bet. But there's always a team that can win. And if you're looking at the games this week, it shows you that although a lot of the predictions you get are right, there's that one game where you're looking at an Ospreys, or you're looking at a Zebra probably wouldn't beat them, but you're looking at an upset, and there's more of those than there've been previously. So, you just wait, and every team is expecting at least one of them. So I would say Leinster are probably a bit better, but it's going to be very, very hard to continue in that trend and win it for the next 4 years, for example. I think there's other things that are going to come into play in that regard. So yes, they're better, but I think a lot of other teams have improved and are stepping up as well. So it's a good
To
league.
use a cliche, but Leinster are kind of in their last couple of years of this team, this particular group that we know, the Conans, the Furlongs, the I was going to say James Ryan. James Ryan's actually really young. I know why I said him, but Conan, Furlong, probably Henshaw, Ross Byrne, Luke McGrath, Gibson Park, Lowe. The vast majority of those are in their last 3 years or so at Leinster, give or take. Hence why they signed Snyman and signed Barrett, because they want to get that Heineken Cup, European Rugby Champions Cup, I should say. And they want to get that and get over the line. And as well as that, and we hate to say it, we try to avoid it as much as possible. Money talks in regular season action. Playoff rugby is entirely different beast, but in terms of going 10 in a row, it's a hell of a lot easier to do when you have a budget of 15 million compared to what is it, £5 million for the Welsh regions? It is easier. Do you know what I mean? That's no one else is able to have Orges Neyman and Jordy Barrett for both of them for Six Nations period.
I think we just kind of need to enjoy it though with those two because at least those two are kind of likable. That, for me anyway. That's just my take.
I'd agree with you on that. Yeah, I think they're likable characters. I mean, it's not even leaving Munster like he did. I would like him to stay at Munster. I think because of the injuries that he had, and he barely played, what, 10, 15 games in 2.5 seasons, and now you see him rip it up for Leinster and C3. I think an injury free that kind of does leave a bit of taste in the mouth, but he's a generational talent in the locks. I think he doesn't play like any other lock does, which is why he's so good to watch. And I think
I
Barrett
think
coming out to Northern Hemisphere is fantastic as well. Just to
he's a great example of what Leinster were missing in that they just needed a player who didn't just follow the textbook, just follow the recipe, if you know what I mean. They needed players who could do something else. And
And
that's why
Barrett's an extension of that, isn't he? Because he's just every Leinster like 15 looks like Henry Mackerley just looks the same as every Leinster 15, apart from the very red ginger hair that he has. Like Liam Turner looks the same as every other Leinster centre. Jordy Barrett looks like a Kiwi centre. Like he doesn't look like a typical Leinster player when he's playing. He does things his own way. The offload before the oh God, was the Sheehan try? I'm not sure. He had one like really nice out the back offload, another really nice tip on pass for the Osborne try. He's more than anyone else in this league. He's probably my favorite player to watch in this league, and he has been since I actually the first time I watched him was the Ireland under 20s beat the New Zealand under 20s in the World Cup back in 2016, and you just knew it's like, oh, here comes another Barrett brother. Like he's just that good, and it's the same.
yeah, freak of a player. All right, then, moving on to the next game. So the next game is a podcast derby between myself and Ben, Scarlets versus Edinburgh. So I'll bring up the score sheet here. Now, I think this is a classic case for me of the way a game ends defines how people are talking about it. Because people are saying it was a thriller, and people are kind of Scarlets fans are a bit annoyed because this is the second or third game in a row where we have been cut 3 scores ahead and a team has scored 2 tries in the final 10 minutes. But my rebuff to that as a Scarlets fan is if you look at the scoreline on 70 minutes, we're 3 scores ahead in these last 2 games and kind of cruising. And we've let in 2 tries, which kind of makes it look closer than it should have been. So I kind of think that Scarlets fans at the moment, and I do the Scarlets podcast, are being a little bit overly critical, but it is eventually we will get found out by doing that. But from a Scarlets point of view, I thought this was a game that we needed to have won based on Edinburgh's away record, and Ben will talk about that more in a second. So this was a game that the Scarlets needed to win, and I thought for that first hour, it was a very, apart from a slight blip at the end of the first half, it was a very professional, organised performance. I thought Johan Lloyd had one of his best performances as a fly half. He's had lots of very good performances as kind of your maverick, your magician, the guy who makes something out of nothing. This was maybe his best performance for the Scarlets as a 10, through how he controlled the game, through the kicking game, through his decision making, through his calmness, because the Scarlets squad was a bit cobbled together. You know, there were still some good players in there, some experienced players in there, but not many first choices in that back line, and we had to go through a 6-2 split because we didn't have anybody else fit and available to wear the 23 jersey. So we went through a 6-2 split. Marnus van der Merwe, I'm happy to say with my chest now, deserves a Springbok look. He's absolutely pulling up trees. I think there are, my personal opinion, there aren't tons of Springbok hookers outside of that top 2 that are drawing attention to themselves. I think that third Springbok hooker spot is open. And I think he's, by being the best player for a team that's in the top half of the URC, I think he's putting his hand up as much as anybody.
Can I ask you a question here?
Go ahead.
If we'd asked Scarlets fans at the beginning of the season to get to the 10th game in 10th round and be in 6th spot, having lost only 4 games, you would have taken that without a doubt.
Every day of the week. Every day of the week.
Yeah, so sometimes you just have to look at the bigger picture here. That they maybe last season they wouldn't have scored the extra try and they would have lost a couple of these games. So I just want to point that if people are being hypercritical about their teams, I'm sure there's some of us that would love to have had a close wins like that, because sometimes we all know when you're winning that far, you do take your foot off the pedal a little bit and you're bound to give up. The best teams do it. I think Scarlets have done a fantastic job to get to this point, and I'm really keen. I'm really happy that the Welsh teams are in. There's two Welsh teams up in the top, top six. I'm absolutely thrilled for Scarlets and Cardiff. So well done, guys. Just look at the big picture. Let's
No,
not
I
be
completely agree.
hypercritical.
I think there
Yeah,
is a bit of a big picture. I think people do zone in on
yeah.
individual
Performances.
games,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there are. I've spoken to people at the Scarlets who will say that, we've had 3 losses by a single point, and their view is like, we should have won those games and we'd be even higher. And I kind of commend that view to a point, because that's how you improve, by seeing the things that you could do better. And there are absolutely things the Scarlets could be doing better. But I also agree with you that there's a big picture to it.
I
Kaylin,
think
yes.
if you look at the big picture, I'm sorry, Kaylin,
All
the
right.
teams that have won it have always, the season before, have been kind of like on the rise. And then Munster did it, Glasgow did it, and Scarlets are like just that year behind now. So not that they'll win it next season, but it's a springboard.
Yeah,
Can I ask you a question, Hugh, if you don't mind? Because
go ahead.
I was one of the people who enjoyed this game, but I was working at something else and I had it in the corner, so I wasn't like grain of salt. I'm a neutral. I didn't really care who won. Would you have kicked for the corner at the very end, or do you think take the points, wind the clock down, and just get the
I
win?
would have kicked to the corner, and I've got a very long rant building in my head about this that I'm going to do on the Scouts pod tomorrow.
Oh, can we
But
get a taster?
if you look at the outcomes, like Johan Lloyd kicked 6 out of 6 yesterday, so fantastic kicking performance. Scarlets have kicked the most penalties of anyone in the league by a long way, and there's a school of thought, like, look at what Glasgow do. I know Glasgow kicked a 3 today, but Glasgow hardly ever kicked the 3. And we've won the same number of games. We've actually got a better, well, the same record as Cardiff, but Cardiff are 2 points ahead of us because they've got more bonus points. If you look at those 3 kicks to the penalty to the sticks that we took, even if we don't take any of them, and we kick to the corner, only score once, we still win the game, but we get a try bonus point. And it's just, I'm a bit confused about the moments in games where Scarlets back themselves and when they don't, because our driving maul is very good, very good. We're scoring a lot of tries off the back of it.
So
So
like just
why?
after half time, didn't we? Your
Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
yeah,
very
your
good
third
ball.
try, yeah, second try,
yeah.
yeah.
And there was
So
a quick tap in there somewhere as well. Do you know, like there was
yeah,
options.
yeah,
I thought at the time, I was like, go for the good. Like, you will win this game. It will take a 0.5% chance for Edinburgh to go and win it from here. Go to the corner, take a quick tap, do whatever it is, get that try. Because like, and I'm not trying to downplay Scars. I think they're in a great run of form, and like, we'll get on to Edinburgh in a second. But that could be costly at the end of the season. I really hope it's not. I really want to see them in the playoffs, but it could. That's the reality of it. That point could make a huge difference.
yeah, absolutely. And look, yeah, even if you're saying this out like only 0.5%, if we do take a penalty, we lose the ball, and Edinburgh go upfield and we lose it, we'll all be spitting feathers. So there's kind of like, you know, a bird in the hand, etc. But Ben, let's talk about it from an Edinburgh point of view. So to tee you up, so normally on when the Scouts are playing someone, I do a bit of a preview and I kind of look into the stats of the team and I say, here's what you need to look out for. Here's the team style and things. I couldn't do it with Edinburgh. I couldn't
I
tell
can't.
you.
I still can't do it either.
I couldn't tell you how they play. I couldn't tell you who their star players are, apart from obvious ones like Duane van der Merwe and stuff. Um, so there was kind of no point previewing it. And I was chatting to an Edinburgh fan on Blue Sky, and he was saying, "What did you think of us?" And I said to him, you can tell your players are good players. You can tell that they've got individual quality, but I can't tell what you're trying to do as a 15." And that's just what you've been saying all season, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think there's a couple of examples that come out of this. Ben Healy's kicking yesterday. I think Johan Nicholas very easily marked it within the 22, the first 2 or 3 that it happened from when we were attacking just probably in our half. And I just looked at it, I was like, what was that? Like, I didn't understand why he felt that he had to do that. Has he been told to do that, or has he not been told to do anything and feels that's his best option? And I don't know which one's true, or none of them are true. But it just felt like, again, just limp and lacking directionless. Um, I've had a bit of a go at Ali Price this season. I'm going to have another go at him. He was slow yesterday, very slow, and I I don't know why he's starting at the moment. I think that was a perfect game of Ben Vellacott to come back in because he's a bit more snipe. He's more of a sniper. Um, it was flat yesterday, but it's an away win. It's going to be a loss. Like we've won one away game this entire season. That was Van in the Challenge Cup, and the only consolation from yesterday is 2 bonus points for being within 7 and for scoring 4 tries. But again, 70 minutes in, we were way, way, way behind them. I think we've got a bit lucky to get 2 tries at the end of the way we did. Whether it was the case you turn your foot off the gas, or whether we decided to string a few passes together and have a bit more attacking poise. But Sean Everett, I've had enough of him. I've had enough of him for a while, but he keeps getting a win here or there to kind of sort of delay the inevitable. But I feel yesterday I think it's a step too far now. And I think there's only a couple of games in the next 7 weeks where I think if you got a new coach in now, it would probably make sense. I don't think they'll do it. I think they'll give him to the end of the season. But I listened to his press conference this morning because I was too annoyed last night to really pay any more attention to it. And he's one of those managers who can't lead. When everything's going right, it's him. When everything goes wrong, it's the players. And he was quite quick to blame the players yesterday over exuberant, giving away 2 penalties. But what are you doing to stop your players from giving away too many penalties? Why were there so many turnovers yesterday? I think off the top of my head, 14 turnovers, 14 penalties conceded, kicks to hand, kicks retained 0, meters gained wouldn't have been very high. It's just really, really just quite, just unsettling having to watch us play every away game because I don't know when we're going to win away this season. And if you want to finish top 8, you've got to win 2 or 3 away games and be solid at home. And I don't see it at the moment. Social media yesterday was very quiet from Edinburgh perspective. I tend to go through like X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And there was like for every Edinburgh post, there was like 1 or 2 likes and no comments. Like no one seems to be paying any attention to Edinburgh Rugby at the moment.
That's a bad sign.
And then on Instagram, they obviously posted a photograph. And they were trying to up the whole, we've taken 2 bonus points back to Edinburgh, hooray. And it's like a lot of the fan, myself included, straight on there going, where's the leadership? Like it just doesn't seem to exist. And I think there's maybe 8 or 9 comments on there, all of a similar theme. Nothing like offensive or rude, just people just getting peeved with the whole situation, not understanding why a team full of international talent, even yesterday, I'm looking through the team, Houston, Patterson came back. Patterson came off with an injury, which is unfortunate. Matt Curry, James Lang, Lewis Wells played again, Ben Healy, Price, Sam Skinner, Glenn Young, Hamish Watson, all capped, not just once or twice. These are multiple, capped internationals, and they just don't seem to be able to show up at the moment. So I'd really want to know what's going on in that leadership room because Sean Everett just does not espouse any sense of leadership for me. He was so monosyllabic yesterday. You can't get an emotion out of him. You can't get. I just don't think he wants to be there. He doesn't seem to care, and it's the indifference that worries me. Why is he acting so indifferently? Because the way he kind of like got hounded out of the Sharks, after a pretty chastening defeat, you think the next club you go to, you go, really got to make an effort here. Like, do I want, the books in 25, 30 years time to show me as just some kind of has-been underachieving manager of actually done something? And at the moment, he's not achieved anything as a manager, as a coach, I don't think. Doesn't feel like he has. Stand credit to that. If you've got anything to say from his South African time, then feel free to jump in. But
no, I mean, I've never been. I'm not
frustrating.
To be honest, I'm not that familiar with him, and I've never been the biggest Shark supporter. But I know that when he was at the Sharks, I don't think there was anything exceptional. He was never in the running to be, part of the Springbok coaching setup. There's other coaches who've gone over to like Japan and gone over to came over to England and a few in the URC as well. I don't think, that he was necessarily touted for any of those roles when he left. The Sharks were a bit of a mess when he was there because they were in a very similar situation to what they are now. They were a very, very good team and they just were unable to finish off games. So, I don't really have much to say. I'm not that familiar with his background and stuff like that. But I think it's difficult as a coach because we don't want to be seen to be giving them a hard time and that kind of thing. But we're all very passionate about our teams. And it gets very, very, very frustrating when there doesn't seem to be any changes or any ownership of errors, So
I think I've seen enough over the season and a half to see a few flashes in the pan where we'll play well, but I feel we're playing well in spite of him, not because of him. And when we play badly, it's just lack of structure. Like exactly like you said. Like I do not know what our picture, our theme, our look is supposed to be at the moment. Are we supposed to play ball in hand? Are we supposed to attack? Or are we just going to be defend? Grunters up the middle. Well, Ben Healy at 10, I feel he's been lost ever since, this entire season whenever he started. He just doesn't. I don't think he knows what type of 10 is
I,
expected.
I would I would say as well, for when you went and played the Lions in Johannesburg, for a South African coach to come away with that result, I would have expected them to be like more prepared. He would know, like, manage the game, or you know what I mean. So that was a bit surprising to me, because you'd think there'd be some sort of inside knowledge there on how to go and play on the high felt and stuff like that. So you do
Consistency
have,
too, because
yeah.
I know Kinghorn's. It's been a long time since Kinghorn went, but even that we couldn't really play him in his right position. We tried him at 10, and now he's off at Toulouse playing on the wing or at 15, and he's a world beater now. And it's just quite frustrating when you see players that are very are world class now, and we just didn't seem to be able to harness that talent in an Edinburgh shirt for him. He just never really seemed to do it. And it's the same when you see Darcy and Duhan go off to Scotland camp, and a few others that have gone, is that you'll know they'll turn up for Scotland, but because they're being coached properly, like it doesn't matter how good you are as a player, you've still got to be coached appropriately. And I just think Everett and his team, I just don't know what they're doing. I just don't feel like there's any coaching, like any sort of genuine, sort of exceptional coaching going on there. It just feels very amateurish at the moment. Like it just doesn't feel like a professional structure. And for that to be a capital city team playing next to Murrayfield, you'd expect better. And the away form has got to improve, because if it doesn't, then
I think that's the key point,
season's
isn't
over.
it? That's the difference between the good teams and the teams that are not good enough. It has to fall. I'm so sure that the Lions can win any home game, but when you go away from home, it's like you have to win away games. That's the telling factor, and you've seen it again. I've already said this earlier, but the teams that have won this competition, they win consecutively away from home, and they get to big games and they winning away from home. So unless you learn to do that, you're struggling.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Lions now then. So Lions versus Bulls, the big South African derby. It looked like, from what I've seen, I haven't seen tons of it, it looked like a very exciting game. Lots of highlight reels coming out of it. Alan, 22-35, kind of, is that a kind of expected result? Is there disappointment? I know Lions and Bulls, big rivalry.
Yeah, I think it's a bit disappointing. I think this was a case of home advantage versus experience and squad depth. I think Villiers Leroux made a huge difference when he came on. The Bulls just started managing the game so much better when he was there. And as a South African fan, it's awesome to see that. But we all know that he's getting on a little bit. So you thought they'd be able to, tie him down a little bit more than that. But it is just literally a case where they are. I kind of expected to struggle. And unfortunately, we're playing them again next. I think we're playing them. We're in Pretoria now next. So, I mean, we have to go through this again. So, but yeah, as a Lions fan, disappointing, especially if you look at where we are on the table now, considering at one point we were second. It's now just starting to look a little bit like we're in free fall. But that's the difference when you have money and you have backing of people, and you don't have the deep pockets that some of the other teams have got, So they go to the Sharks, they go to the Bulls, and rightfully so, because these players don't have very long careers. But it can be very frustrating when you're watching your ex-players running all over the URC and stuff like that. But even the Bulls can't hold on to all their players. I mean, Orange is playing is it France? I think it's France.
Japan.
Japan.
Dinah Bulls.
Yeah, so I mean,
he's having a
pulling him
very
out
good time of
halfway
it as
through,
well.
pulling him out halfway through the season. I mean, that doesn't happen for every team, does it? So it's a South African thing with the exchange rate and stuff, and I understand that. But from a Lions perspective, disappointing. All we can hope for in these games is basically, we should win. We should win. It's a home game. There was more fans than normal there. Not that it was full. But the Lions did really well to come back into the game. They were 10-0 behind, and then they got into 11-10 lead. And then at one point, it looked like they might actually stay within touching distance. And then the Bulls bench came on, and that was the end of the game, really. But probably the most worrying thing from a Springbok perspective, and as a South African fan, is the injuries to Ruan Nortje and Elrich Louw. Both of them have gone off with serious knee injuries, so we have to keep an eye on that because the Bulls are going to miss those two quite a lot.
Massively, massively. As a neutral and just as a fan of the league, if you're looking towards the end of the season, you would expect that the Bulls would be what kind of the top South African team. So, big picture, just purely as a neutral, it's good that the Bulls have gotten back on the horse because there was some tough questions being asked after the European campaign, which was very disappointing. But I'm looking at the stats here, and the name that's cropping up a lot on the Bulls side is Cameron Hanekom,
Yeah.
as it normally is. Now, one of the kind of sideshows to this game was Cameron Hanekom against Frankie Horn, who's been getting a lot of hype lately. What was your take on that battle, and what's your take on Frankie Horn as a player?
I think Frankie Horn is one of our better players. I think he's excellent player, but the Bulls pack is just so overpowering and so much fitter. They looked so much fitter than our guys. Once they get the shunt on in the scrums and lineouts and at the high felt, it's really, really difficult. And they do have a better pack than us, and they do have more experience in that regard. So it's very difficult being an eighth man and trying to like pick up from scrums, which are the Lions scrum is very, very good, but it's difficult scrumming time after time, and then. It's just the Bulls have got the best pack in South Africa. No, I don't think that's debatable. And I think it's really any South African team playing them that they should win the Shield again this year. I was kind of surprised they didn't win it. I always thought that their pack was, the strongest in South Africa, and I think it's one of the stronger packs in the competition. I think we can all agree on that. But coming to the high felt, it's not that far from Pretoria that it makes a genuine difference to them, to be honest with you. They're not going to go to Johannesburg and feel out of their depth. They're going to feel like they're going to a cheaper version, or I guess you could say, and half empty stadium. When we go and play them in Pretoria, like next time, it's going to be crazy. It'll be a lot more people. It just feels. I wouldn't say it. Necessarily feels like you're playing on a level footing when you're playing the Bulls. So there you go.
Fantastic. Well, if you're enjoying what you're hearing so far or watching so far on YouTube, please consider subscribing to the channel. Or if you're on audio format, give us a 5-star rating and share a link with a friend. It's really difficult to grow audio format podcasts. So sharing links and giving 5-star reviews is the best way that you can help us if that's what you would like to do. Okay, moving on to the next game then. So this was the first game of the weekend, Ospreys versus Benetton. Now, there's a lot to say about this game. There's an awful lot to say about this game. So I'll go first as kind of the Wales representative talking about the Ospreys. It's such a nice change to see the Ospreys playing pleasant rugby. And that's the conversation that everyone's been having ever since, is that this is a type of Ospreys performance that we haven't seen in a long time. And I think a lot of credit has to go to Mark Jones. Now, he could still be in a honeymoon period. We'll have to see how long this lasts. But to take them from where they were pre-Christmas, which was in a very low spot, and they're now undefeated under him, and to kind of reinvent the attack in the way that he that shows real leadership. That shows real leadership, because he's going to have to have gone in there, and the Scarlets went through this last season. He's going to have to have gone in with the coaching and the senior players group and gone, look, we're going to have to do something different. Everything that we've been doing for the last 2 or 3 years, we need to do something else. And all the players appear to have gone, yeah, we're up for that, which I don't know, maybe says about kind of how the vibe in the camp was before this. But yeah, I'm happy for Ospreys fans, because for the last 2 and a bit years, they've been asked to watch rugby that was difficult to watch and difficult to enjoy. Now, of course, it's enjoyable when you were winning matches like they were last season, but it was a tough sell. And even the commentators were referencing it during the match, like, "Oh, this is so nice compared to what we've been watching for the last few years." That's what the commentators were saying live during the broadcast in the UK. And yeah, this was always my thing, is I always felt that Osprey squad, it's got fantastic players in it, and I always felt it was capable more than just 10-man rugby scrum line out, kind of 2 tries to one kind of victories. I always felt it was capable of more. And I never really liked it when the Ospreys fans were told, this is the best you can hope for. We had all of the build up to Ospreys games, the whole week would be reasons why they couldn't win, why they shouldn't win. And then if they did win, they were told, oh, it's because we play this pragmatic, hyper-conservative style rugby, etc., etc. So now to see the team play a game plan that you would actually want to watch, that you would actually go out of your way to watch the highlights of, I think they need to stick with this because, I don't want to get into the attendances, but the attendance wasn't great on Friday night.
Mhm.
It was remarkably
2,500.
2,800, which
Mm.
for some context, and like I said, I don't want to get stuck in on it, but to give some context, Scarlets half an hour up the road are getting double that. Cardiff, 3/4 of an hour the other way are getting triple that. You need to give people a reason why they'd want to come and see them. And if they're going to continue playing like they've played in the last couple of games, then they've got that. So for me, the Ospreys are onto a winner here. But for every game where there's a winner, there's a loser.
Big
43-0,
loser.
by the way. I feel like I should pull up the scores. Ben, what
I
did
think
we just
after 10 minutes, I think I could have predicted Benetton were not going to score. They were terrible.
they
Probably
had
the worst.
they had a
What
perfectly
first
legitimate try ruled out in the first 5 minutes, but
after that?
after that, my goodness, what was that performance?
It's one of the worst team performances I've ever seen. And Caelan, I'm going to call you out here. Was it you that said? Oh no, it might be you who you said Fekete was honking. Is that right?
I deny everything.
It was Hugh.
Okay,
It,
it was
sorry,
you. I think it was you as
Hugh.
well. Benetton was just. I don't understand. After going from the highs of last weekend beating La Rochelle to this, I don't understand. It's just bizarre, isn't it? I know a lot. I know a lot of players have gone to camp, but you'd think that morale would have gone through the rest of the squad to be able to perform something beyond acceptable. But this was terrible. I think of all the
This
matches
has
I watched this
happened a few
season,
times though, hasn't it? Where like Benetton have an okay Christmas period because they usually play Zebra twice, so like fair enough.
2 wins.
They have an okay Christmas period, and then usually Challenge Cup rugby, which they usually do well in up until this season when in Champions Cup, and then they come into Six Nations period, and they just look like a different team. And it's almost like what we said about Ulster, where oh, you take out McCluskey and they're different. I think Benetton, the drop off is bigger than we probably give credit for. Like, yes, you've got the likes of I think Rhino Smith played in this game, for instance, and he's a very experienced
Well, let's
player
take
and
a
a
look
very
at the
good player.
lineups for Benetton here. Thomas
Albanos
Gaggio,
was playing, to be fair.
Thomas Gaggio, first choice for Argentina. Augustin Creevy, okay, maybe not his peak, but Argentina
Still,
legend. Like Alessandro
Even Seaman.
Issacore, hell of a player.
Yeah.
Let's keep going into the backs. Andy Uren, very experienced. Thomas Albanos, one of the best fly halves in the world, ball in hand. Melekai Fekitoa, World Cup winner, and Rhino Smith, one of the most underrated players in the URC.
yeah,
Now, okay,
I
look,
retract my statement.
The Ospreys played great. Losing is one thing, 43-0. And like the last 2 tries that the Ospreys scored were basically owned tries by Benetton. Like there was one where Thomas Albanos somehow ends up chucking the ball 30 meters backwards to nobody. Someone
yeah.
carries it over their own line. Then it's a scrum on the 5 meter for the Ospreys, and Morgan Morse runs over unopposed. Just picks it up and dives over the line with no one touching him. Like shocking. And they just play with their heads down. That's my thing about Benetton. They defend with their heads down. No one's looking at who's around them. No one's looking at what the bigger picture is. When they attack, they get white line fever like nobody's business. It's just pick and goes from the forwards, and they're not winning those physical battles. And the budget. We have to talk about the budget. This is not a badly resourced team. This is not a bad squad. No planet should they ever be losing 43-0 to anyone in this league. That's my piece.
Sorry, I was on mute and I was trying to find the mouse. I would agree. Like that is the bit that we should come back to as well if we're going to mention it about, Irish provinces or whoever. And I think it's fair game to mention about the provinces. I would absolutely allow that as the Irish representative here. But for Benetton, like, the fact that Isagor played this game and, the fact that Zanon and Albanos and Creevy and Gajo and Rhino Smith. I do still feel like they do consistently drop these games at this time of year for whatever reason, but they can't be losing 43-0 either. I still think that is a factor. I think it's consistent, but it shouldn't happen. It really shouldn't.
Absolutely. Okay, then let's move on to game number. What are we on? 6. Glasgow versus Connacht. That was played today being Sunday for us. Another win for Glasgow, Ben. Job done. Obviously highly affected by Scotland call-ups. What did you make of the game?
It was pretty good. Connacht, I think, were unlucky to a point. I think, but they were just too lateral when they did have a lot of possession setting off and a lot of territory, but just too lateral. I think Ben Afshar's try, sort of mid first half, sort of 25, 30 minutes in, that was a fantastic run, and it was a forward who just decided to defy gravity, logic, and his position. It probably would have been. It would have been. Was it Schickerling or Richardson? I can't remember. Just cantered through.
There we go.
And it was a really good offload from second.
This is a great finish. He's got so much to do here.
Yeah, exactly. He has, and it's having the nous to be able to dab it over after he's been tackled.
Can I throw out a quick hot take on that one? Well, not a hot take. There was 2 Cordero brothers on the field today, and I mean no disrespect to anyone. I think Glasgow have the better one, maybe not the higher name profile in Facundo, but Jesus, like it was not Santi's day. And look, it's a great finish by the Glasgow scrum half, but it was kind of at that point. I don't know how you felt, Ben, watching it. At that point, I was kind of like, oh, Connacht could be in for a typical Glasgow. They'll get 4 tries, they'll run over the top of you, they'll just get the job done, and they won't get out of second gear at that point.
But you're right. They didn't. Glasgow, I think, I kind of epitomised when you raised it earlier when they did have the opportunity sort of to go for that 4th try, but they were going backwards. Ben Osher said, "No, we're just going to kick it out now because you don't want to be turning the ball over there when you're 3 points ahead." In Connacht, you can easily run through. And they did score a try very late on as well, so momentum was with them. But I don't know, Scotstoun, Glasgow is not known for its weather, but today the rain was horizontal. It was that bad, and
there was a line that
it was absolutely horrendous. Did I see the Ospreys fan on Friday all retreat up the stadium? I can't remember. Everyone's like, go back. But Scotstoun, I don't think you can retreat anywhere in that weather and stay dry. It was awful.
There was a line mentioned in the Ulster game, again, the storms and the weather, where I think it was Mark Robson was like, you look to the right and you see the rain coming in from the right, and you look left and you see the rain coming in from the left as well. I think it was the same in Glasgow with the wind and rain. But to give Connacht their credit, and I was not overly impressed with Connacht's attack in particular, and I haven't been for quite some time now, since this time last season at least. Their defensive efforts were very good, but their defensive maul and defensive line out is one of the best in the league. And today was always going to be a big test because they had no Niall Murray and no Darren Murray in there, who were typically their line out callers. They had David O'Connor and Joe Joyce, but they've stopped every single Glasgow. I think Glasgow only had like one maul that actually looked like they were going to score.
Yeah, I think that was a massive amount of credit needs to go to Connacht for that. Now Glasgow obviously had hookers playing out of position, but again, that's just you don't see that happen to Glasgow very often.
There was not a single maul.
Connacht's defensive line is just unreal. Like it really is.
Very good. I think there was a particular moment in the first half, sort of bottom left corner, when here goes Johnny Matthews kind of thing. He's going to steamroller through, and it was one stop almost immediately. The ref was just calling ball's got to come because it's not going forward. And I think Connacht, to their credit, just managed to stymie Glasgow's maul. Probably the only time this season's a team that's happened to the Glasgow. I think they've probably scored a maul try every game potentially until today. Looking at the try scores today, Cancellieri got 2 and Afshar, so obviously off wing play or an open play. But I think Connacht can take. I know they're not having a great season. They're sort of sitting there third, sort of languishing third bottom. But I thought they were okay today, and I think they'll come away from that game a little bit disappointed. There was a particular moment, that sort of 60, 65-minute period before they scored their 3rd try, where Connacht probably should have got another 5 or 7 points on the board. But I think it was Blade and Hanrahan, or Hanrahan might have gone off, or Blade might have gone off this point. But
it was Devine was on, and
there was a pass out the back. Yeah, and one went too high, and it was a 5 meter. It was a 4 or 5 meter pass. It's a basic one. It's gone so high, and there was some words spoken between the scrum half and the fly half, and it was one of those. They were in an attacking position, but you've got to get those passes right, because they were in the ascendancy, and Yeah, I mean, I'm quite fond for Connacht because I've been to Galway and I love it over there. It's, one of the most beautiful parts of the country, of Ireland, if not most of Europe. I think it's just a stunning part of the world. Um, but yeah, I think they may come away from that feeling a little bit disappointed that they didn't get anything
I
out of
reckon
it apart
so.
from one losing bonus
And
point.
like, look,
Yeah.
there's no shame in losing in Glasgow. Like, I think I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it's like one loss there in the last like 2 calendar years or something like that in Scotstoun.
Yeah.
Like, they don't lose there. But the only thing for Connacht is they need to start winning these games now. And it's easy to say third from bottom, right? And that's where they are. You can't change that fact. But they have Edinburgh, Benetton, Cardiff, Munster at home. That's the game in Castlebar we discussed last week. You'd imagine they'll win most of those. They should win most of those home games for Connacht. They should be winning. Zebra, Ospreys, Lions, Stormers. I think they need at least 2 wins there. That would take them to about 9, 10 wins, give or take. They haven't really lost anyone who they shouldn't have lost to yet. Do you know what I mean? Like they lost Ulster at home. You could have, whatever way you want to look at that. But like they're going to need to get at least 1 win in South Africa and probably beat the Ospreys and Zebra as well. And I think it's just we haven't seen that level of consistency from Connacht yet to have that kind of I don't want to say the confidence in them because they have the ability, but you just haven't seen the level of consistency. And I don't want to bring up the Mac Hansen thing about, oh, it's hard to be consistent when you're not getting the goals. That wasn't the case today. Today was just a conditions based, scrappy game of rugby against a team who, look, a team who should be beating Connacht, I feel like. I think Glasgow are at that top tier. I think they're at that top table with Leinster and probably the
Mhm.
Bulls, where it doesn't matter if they rotate. If they're at home, you back them, regardless of who
I
they're playing
thought
against.
Duncan Weir was very good.
Duncan
Very
Weir
good
was
against
very good,
him.
actually, yeah. And so was Asher the Nine. And I thought Cancellieri really, really good. Like, for considering Glasgow didn't do a huge pile, I actually think a lot of their backs played well on an individual basis. Like, Cancellieri always looked sharp. Ollie Smith's first game back in a year and a half.
Yeah, it's a long time
Um,
out for him. Yeah.
after a long time out, and he hadn't played 13. He hadn't started a game at 13 for Glasgow and actually looked all right. Now,
I think
granted,
Franco Smith said that this was the first game that he's coached when none of McDowell, Tuipulotu, and Hugh Jones have been involved.
which is crazy when you think
Mhm.
about it. Like, because like
Going back
McDowell in particular is the one who's just always there, isn't he?
Hmm.
going back to Ben Afshar, obviously that try score was incredible, but the energy levels to play 80 minutes at nine in those conditions and still maintain that high standard. I mean, he's 21, 22, I think, and last season was his breakout season. Didn't play many games last year. Um, Scotland are shallow when it comes to nines, and I think how long is he away from a Scotland call up? After Ben White, it's a slim pickings, I think, to be honest, at the moment. So be interesting to see when he does get a shout. Has it
Is he
got
young?
injuries maybe over the tournament?
Hmm.
But yeah, I think he's very, very good. And today was just an advert for his potential. I think he was absolutely outstanding. And you score that type of try, you're buzzing. That's the rest of the game. You're buzzing after scoring a try like that, and you could see it in the way he was playing. He was just quick off the back of the rock. Managed the game very, very well. And in conditions like that,
Mm.
very impressive. And
Kicked well,
doesn't deserve man of the match. Yeah, he did kick well. He kicked very well. Yeah.
and to their credit, I actually think Connacht kicked pretty well. Now, I don't think JJ Hanlon his best game back, but he's had a long-term injury, and I
Mhm.
would not fault him. But to be fair, I think Connacht kicked well as well. Like Matthew Ryan had a lovely 50-22 in that second half, where they
Yeah.
were going nowhere, and he just we see it the whole time. Like, I don't want to say it's a Dupont play, but we've seen Dupont do that a few times where he's like, I'm going nowhere. I'm literally just going to leather this into the corner and hope for the best. But because he's Dupont, it lands on the 5 meter line. There
Yeah.
was shades of that where it just sits up nicely, gets a good bounce, gets the 50-22, and I think it's actually a few phases after that that miss past Hanrahan happens. And to be fair, like I'm a big Matthew Devine fan. I think he's on talent levels in particular. I think he's the best nine in Connacht. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful talent to have there. But it's just nothing got going for Connacht, and sometimes that's just nothing to do with individuals. That's just the
It's
game in
just the one
general.
percenters. Yeah, it's
It's
just
the
those
one
little
percent, and
percentages.
when you look
Yeah.
so flat and you're not winning your collisions in midfield, I actually think another player to give him credit, Sam Elo off the bench was brilliant. He won every scrum battle against his opposite man, who I don't know the name of. Forgive me for that one. He carried a real conviction, and it's kind of like that question with Connacht. Like Connacht are not the richest, and teams who are richer typically have bigger packs, so Connacht have to work around that. But I'd be looking at Sam Elo and saying, I want to get him in there as my 30-minute man. And I know I say that, and on the backdrop of two Connacht props now in the Ireland, two Connacht tight head props now in the Ireland squad since the Furlong injury. But I think Elo's the exact power profile like Scott Wilson at Ulster, and like about 17 South African props because they're all massive, who you could just possibly invest in.
The thing with Samuel did play well. The only thing is that he looked like he might have taken a bit of a nasty head knock really close to the end. I'm not sure. He looked a bit upright and looked a bit starry eyed when he got up. So hopefully it's nothing too serious. But yeah, he was definitely looking to go into contact whenever he could in that sort of last half an hour. But
And,
yeah,
and maybe
I
it's
think
just put a bow on a conversation we probably had before, but it does feel like there's more of those 50-50 collisions creeping back into the game again this season, which I hate to see. Like there was 3 HIAs in the Munster game. I think there was 2 in the Leinster game. There was 2 in the Connacht game, maybe. And look, HIAs are precautionary measures. I understand that, but it does feel like the pendulum has swung back in the opposite direction again. And obviously with 20-minute red cards coming into the Six Nations now, and whatever about them coming into the senior Six Nations, coming into the under-20 Six Nations is an absolute sin. It's disgraceful. Like if you're ever going to clamp it down, like I'd actually be in favor of the under-20 Six Nations having the lower tackle line. Like that's how far I'd go. But rugby just doesn't seem to want to do it. But that's a day for a full hour-long podcast on safety.
Yeah, and we still got 2 more games to get through. So let's talk now about Cardiff Sharks. So a rare win on the road for Sharks. So Sharks are happy hunting grounds in Wales. They've won both of their trips to Wales so far. 22-42, the end score. So it's a bit of a blowout. It was a close enough game for a while, Alan, but Sharks, despite being a team with serious issues, seemed in the league to be managing to pick up enough wins to be in the conversation.
Yeah, I think so. I think it clicked for the Sharks. I think it was awesome to see them get an away win. A very, very strong team. A lot of the guys they've brought in playing really well, like Lorenzo Julius, and obviously
He's a great player.
yeah, he's an awesome player playing at outside centre. They played Ethan Hooker at inside centre. He's normally on the wing. They've got people like Arm on the bench, but if you look at the pack, I mean, that's a powerful pack, isn't it? You got and you had both Chitsuka brothers there as well. They played Vincent at lock. Perhaps
I've never seen him play lock before, but now that I've seen him play lock, he looks like he should always be a lock.
Yeah, I think I mean it just worked for them. He's so mobile and that kind of thing. But very, very good game for the Sharks. Impressive. Jordan Hendricks at fullback looked pretty good. But Mapimpi, he's getting on a little bit now. But he was really he's a tough player, isn't he? And he's really good for
look at this
the
from
team.
Vincent Chituka. This there's some Cardiff players like playing statue tag, to be honest,
making
in this
business decisions.
I
Like
do want to put say that winger for Cardiff is it Bowen?
Tom Bowen.
He's some player, isn't he? Like
See if I can find his try.
yeah, he's very, very good. Very frustrating to watch him because you don't know what he's going to do. So he was a bit while I was watching the game, I was really getting into it. I felt like I should have been there, really. Me and my wife were debating whether we should go to that game, and I was like, "Oh, it's the Sharks," because the previous game they'd actually lost to the Stormers in Cape Town. So it just goes to show you where you are in the the URC at the moment. So the Sharks lost to the Stormers, and then they play like this away from home. So awesome result for the Sharks, worth a watch. And I think they have a game in hand still. And I think all the South African teams still have a game in hand. And
They do, some of them have 2.
Lions
Well,
have got
I've
two,
looked
haven't
at
they?
it.
The Lions and the Bulls are playing on the next week. They're playing, and then there's a week off for the South African teams. And I think the Bulls and Lions are making up a game there in Pretoria. So that's the game I mentioned earlier. So hopefully the Lions can win that one. But talking about the Sharks, there was a point where I thought that the Cardiff were going to come back and challenge them a bit, but they just the same thing as what happened in the Bulls game. Really, they just bought on the bench, and the experience just told, and they just took over. What a very, very, and I was really impressed with the crowd in Cardiff as well. It's always good to see.
Cardiff have been getting good crowds this season.
So that's really, really good to see, and it makes you want to be there. I did say to my wife, "Oh, we should have gone," because it looked like an awesome day out and stuff. So good.
I love going to the Arms Park. I've been there 2 seasons in a row and always had a great experience. Like over in the terrace, which is the south side, facing the Millennium, the Jason the Millennium. But it's fantastic stadium because it's so close to the city centre. It's
it's an awesome location. But so the
like
Sharks looking really strong. I think we've all been waiting for a game and a performance like that from them. So it's good to see. Really, really, positive game.
Yeah, I'm just going to see if I can bring up the stats here to have a bit of a look at them. Because it was just a bit kind of very typical Cardiff this game for me in that they scored some nice tries and their attack is good, objectively good. They're very good at executing, but when they have opportunities, but just the defense, the defenders beaten 25. Although it's pretty level, defenders beaten. Their tackles missed. This is the thing about tackle stats is you can't miss a tackle that you didn't try to make. And I think
Yeah.
with Cardiff, there's a little bit of sometimes players not making tackles that should be made. Um, One thing I do kind of want to say, and this is kind of my thermonuclear take of the pod, is I've had a lot of people asking me why is Cam Winnett not in the Wales squad, and I've done a lot of looking into it, and for what it's worth, I think Cam Winnett should be in the Wales squad, but it's things like this for me that I think count against him. Just a little bit of lacking that decisiveness in the moment. Maybe this try that Mapimpi scored isn't the best example of it, but just kind of out of position, just hesitant.
It looked very
He's not really doing
indecisive, didn't
anything.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, he's not doing anything. Yeah, like make a pick. Do what you're going to do.
Yeah,
He's
and he
just a bit
got
lost, isn't
he
he?
got another try assist in this game off another set move, but kind of I do think that Cam Winnett has weaknesses off the ball, which might be why he's not in the Wales squad. Like I said, if it was me, I'd have him in the squad. Starting is another conversation, but I think he's a young player. This is still only his second year of pro rugby, so he's
Yeah.
got time to fix it.
But looking at the table, you've got the Sharks fourth with a game in hand on the same points as Cardiff, who are fifth. So again, same as we said for Scarlets, I'd take that at the beginning of the season. And they've got the bonus points as well, which have put them over Scarlets, which I'm sure for you guys is always nice to get a little one over your nearest rivals and stuff like that,
Yeah,
isn't it? So
yeah,
I
There's
think
only
Cardiff,
9 points between third and 12th, which
yeah.
is
yeah.
that's
So
well,
it's
we
really good for
predicted
the
that, didn't we?
competition, but it's good to see Cardiff doing so well. And out of the Welsh teams, are they the ones with the most fans attending the games, stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah, like they've done some. I'm not sure what it is. I'd have to defer to someone who knows a bit more about it. But Cardiff, have, one way or another, have found a way to get people in the door. Now, it's a great location, and like you said, it's the kind of thing that you look at and go, "Oh, we should go to that." Um, but despite all the doom and gloom that's in Welsh rugby, their attendances have been going up for the last few seasons. And whatever they're doing, please can they tell everybody else how they're doing it because it's working. Last game then of the weekend was Dragons versus Munster, Caelan. So it's tough times being Dragons related at the moment and talking about the Dragons, 19 points to 38 kind of doesn't look that bad at the end of it, but they were 31-0 down at halftime. Like my goodness, Munster scoring tries on the second, 16th, 18th, 32nd minutes, including a penalty try as well that's not listed there.
Yeah,
And
which was unlucky.
they've come out in the second half and scored some nice tries, which we'll look at in a minute. But I don't know, as the Munster fan watching your team play in this game, what was your impression of that first half?
I think, look, it would be very easy for me to say, look, Munster won the first half. All I care about is the first half. Munster finished this game with 10 forwards on the field just because of a series of HIAs. And to their credit, Dragons seen this and they exploited this. They went after Jack O'Donoghue on the wing, John Hodden on the wing. They went after the midfield channel where they had Butler and Scanlon, which wouldn't be the soundest defensive channel.
21 clean breaks for Munster. My
Mm.
goodness me, that is a lot.
Munster's attack hit a gear, and I think a big part of that is first try scorer Diarmuid McGallen being back in the field, being back in the team. He brings a different edge. Power wingers typically they're not in vogue for a lot of people. A lot of people just like they're really quick wingers who can just run away. McGallen's quick, but he is so direct. He's so strong in contact. And Tom Hearn was also brilliant in that first half. What Munster did really well, I felt like, was that second man on the ball, which was typically Tom Farrell, who we've praised on this podcast before. He's had a really, really good season. He was throwing offloads, tip on passes, inside passes, little screen passes, but everything just seemed to be working. And there was that period there between, where they rattled off three tries in quick succession, where it almost looks easy. And I think easy is the wrong word, but like Farrell has that little reverse pass to Daly and gets it back and he feeds Kendall and Kendall goes in and then there's the little behind the back offload to Daly and that leads to the penalty try which and attack wise Munster really really clicked. Now you could go into the stats. Their points per 22-meter entry was worse than it was last week because they found no issue getting to the 22. It was just from there, which to their credit, the Dragons did defend well. The Dragons were actually had the worst defense in 22 entries all season and actually did all right defending it and keeping Munster out. But they themselves, if I'm going to talk about Munster injuries, they lost Tane Basham, they lost Rodrigo Martinez, their loose head prop early in the first half. They lost their starting centre. I think it was Ackerman. In the early in the first half as well, they lost a couple of players, and it just became a game. We just won those games in the second half. We're just back and forth. You have it, I have it. You might score, I might. It was kind of one of those. But it's not ideal for the Dragons. It's their biggest home loss of the season so far by some distance. I think only one loss by more than 7 points at home
But
up
that
up
doesn't
to this.
really tell the story, And
No,
if you talk about trajectory, at the beginning of the season, the Dragons were losing games, but they were at home, like in the lead for at least portions of those games. 31-0 down at half time. And, they just brought up one of the monster tries here.
that was a lovely score.
The
That
with
was
the position.
I was just gonna say that was Ben O'Connor actually on his starting debut for Munster getting his first try. And the kind of weird part about that, and I know Ben will be very interested here. Ben O'Connor was a star hurler coming through, and chose rugby. So he actually, and you probably see it at times in his game, he doesn't look like a typical rugby player because he actually didn't play a lot of schools rugby. He was focusing on the hurling. He decided to give rugby a go. He's played Ireland 20, he's played Emerging Ireland. He's a good player, and Mike Haley's actually out for a couple of weeks now with injury, and hopefully Ben O'Connor can get a run. There was a player there who I meant to, I think it's Harry Wilson, who was involved in that try, who actually did really well off the bench, to his credit. Came on for Ackerman when things weren't going great, but he actually had a pretty solid game, and I should give him credit. But I think Basham, with Wainwright already out and Elliot D already out, that was the one that kind of they lost a lot of pop once he went out. Because no disrespect to Dan Lydiard, and he actually topped the tackle count because he's Dan Lydiard. It doesn't matter if it's 2012 or 2025, that's just what he does. But they didn't have the same level of pop in that back row when Basham went off injured.
And it looks like
I think
Basham will not be at the Dragons next season.
Yeah,
I
it
think
looks like he's going to
Cardiff are
Cardiff.
yeah, he's going to Cardiff.
The thing about this is the attendance was actually quite good. There was actually a fair number of Dragons fans there, but the thing, what they're being asked to watch at the moment, like there's the senior leadership, and I'm talking like above Philo Tierney, I'm talking about like the management, the owners of the Dragons, need to look at themselves in the mirror because you can't ask people to turn up every week and watch that. The stat that jumps out to me there is 25 defenders beaten by Munster, 21 clean breaks. So that's telling me you beat a man and you're through running in
You're
open
through, yeah.
prairie, and that's not good enough. And I think I saw a stat for the Dragons previously that they're kind of like second or third most of missed tackles leading to tries. So it's basically once you're through the Dragons line, you're scoring at the moment, unfortunately, and that just comes. I mean, I don't know enough about coaching rugby defense to say what it's down to, but it's not a pleasant stat.
Ultimately, you have to win your collisions. Like that's what it boils down to. And like, look, Munster have been a team who've lost far too many collisions in their own 22. Hence why they also had a very bad 22 and in defense all season.
Hmm.
But as you said, and I mean this with the greatest respect to player, attacker, and defender. You can't be falling off tackles against Shane Daly in midfield, Tom Farrell in midfield. Like you can excuse a Tom Hearn, you can guys like that who's running through at pace. But winger on winger, you have to make that hit. And Tia, as you said, he is a defensive coach. He came in as the defense coach. We thought he was going to do something a little bit different, but at times it looked very porous. And to be fair, I actually think that's where I give the Dragons forwards a little bit more credit was they stood up. They made their hits. Do you know what I mean? They went after the breakdown. They did all that. The lineout was good. They did a very good job on disrupting Munster's maul. Outside that, it just looked a bit too easy for Munster at times. Even when they finished the game with only 5 backs, it looked
Yeah.
like they could get to the edges very easily.
Well, the last thing that I want to mention is that this is a trend that I am seeing growing on social media
The
is
offload, isn't it?
is like official accounts referring to passes as offload. So Alona Mar had one. There was one for the Ospreys the other day, and now the Dragons. This is not an offload. This is a pass. Like an offload is a specific thing. Watch, that's a pass. Saying what a pass, what a break and pass is equally as hyping. You don't need to call it an offload when it's not. So that's my pedantic rant on that. Stop it, and I shall continue to call it out if it continues to happen.
Offload is
I
like
will
the new
support you.
dominant tackles. It's just going to be everywhere for a while, and we're just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's like this constant sort of theme in football. Hopefully, it doesn't come to rugby of winner stays on. And there's one with Troy Deeney of all people when these better strikers are coming up, and he literally just stands there thinking he's better than Emmanuel Adebayor and stuff like that. And I'm like, Troy, man, come on, like you're not as good as Adebayor. But that is a kind of fad in football I really detest. Is winner stays on whatever position it is. It's embarrassing. Like that is not good content. That is, yeah. Anyway,
All about those
do
clicks, Ben.
not come to rugby, please. We do not want it.
Yes, but if you have come to the URC Rewind podcast and you're still here, you clearly love it. So if you're not subscribed, why not? Okay, let's have a quick look at the table then. So we know Leinster's top, so there's not much to talk about there. And we kind of Glasgow are where we expected, but it gets interesting from third down. So as you said, I think it was Ben, third to 12th, 9 points. But there's more to it than that. So it's actually third to 13th is 11 points.
Mm.
But Lions have got 2 games in hand on those above them. Stormers have got 1 game in hand. Bulls in third with 2 games in hand. Now, if they win both of those, which I think are against South African opposition, which you think they might, they could
One of them is
go
against the
second.
Lions as well.
Mm.
In like 2 weeks' time.
I
Yeah.
think they're also later in the season, they still have to play Leinster at home as well,
Yeah.
in Pretoria, I think. And then
Yeah.
the Leinster are playing the Sharks at home as well. So it isn't going to be, the Bulls are in a really good position. And I think that, do they have to play Benetton or something as well still? So they've got a good games coming up, and I think they're in a really good position. But it's, a lot of it will rely on those injuries and seeing how far they can push being out of the Champions Cup is probably going to help them quite a bit.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think Sharks are, despite the many issues that the Sharks have, I think they're in a decent position as well, game in hand on those below them in fourth already. Good place for them to be. And then, like that kind of fifth down, it's anybody's. Now, I do expect Munster to go on a run. I do expect Munster to go on their classic post Six Nations run. And I think that they could easily get into that top four. I think it's
Top
still
four is
on.
there for someone. Like I think fourth will become available. What's really interesting is from just because I know Munster's fixtures because I have to know them. Munster play Edinburgh, Scarlets, Glasgow, and Cardiff in their next couple of games, and the Bulls. Like it's very much like okay, now are you going to beat the teams around you? And especially between Scarlets, Munster, Edinburgh. Scarlets have turned over Edinburgh. Can Munster now go and turn over the Scarlets and Edinburgh at home? If they can, that's going to give them just that little bit of a cushion because I think we'd all expect Benetton to kind of fall out of the race over the next couple of weeks based on prior history. And then like Connacht seemed a bit far back. The Lions have 2 tough games in hand, one of those against the Bulls, away in Pretoria. So big opportunity for Munster, but a big opportunity as well for just Cardiff and Scarlets because I think I speak for everyone. Obviously, Hugh, you want to see the Scarlets in the playoffs. Like that goes without saying. We do want to see at more than one Welsh team in the playoffs if at all possible.
It'll be interesting to see who finishes top out of Cardiff and Scarlets because both have had favourable fixtures. I think Cardiff have obviously had a lot of home games already.
Yeah, 7 I think, no, 6 to
Yeah.
7.
So that'll be interesting to see who maintains that. Scarlet's points difference is a lot healthier.
That's a pretty mean defense as well for the Scarlets. Like,
Yeah,
Cardiff,
it's not bad.
Cardiff home games have been. I mean, yesterday was 60 odd points. The Glasgow game was 80 something points, wasn't it? Shared between
Yeah.
them. So Cardiff tend to play in games where there seems to be high scores all over the shop.
But
so.
that does mean that they're picking up try bonuses as well, which is why they're 2 points ahead. So that's an interesting narrative. And I do think that the Ospreys, if they can maintain this kind of playing style, could get back into the conversation because they have a few derbies left to go. And once you get momentum in rugby, it's tough to lose it. And yeah, down the bottom. Zebra now on 3 wins. And like I said, I don't want to keep going on about it, but it's tough for the Dragons now to see where their next win is coming from. It's tough to see where that originates from. So yeah, so exciting times being the URC, but unfortunately now the URC takes yet another break for 2 weeks as we have this thing. You might have heard of it. It's called the Six Nations. Is about to start. So we're not going to do tons of Six Nations chat because every single podcast in the entire world is doing Six Nations chat. So let's just quickly go around the table, 1 to 6. I'll tell you what. I'll do it like this. Who's finishing first? I'm going to go around and everybody say. So, Kaylin, who's finishing first in the Six Nations?
France on points difference.
Alan?
I'm going to go. I don't have a vested interest in this, so I'm going to go with England. Okay, there you go.
Ben?
France, but it won't be a Grand Slam.
I think France, and I think they could do a Grand Slam. But I think England have an opportunity.
Can I throw out a stat to you, Hugh? You love a good stat.
Go on.
France have only ever won one of their last, in the last 25, 30 years, something like that. Only one of their championships have come on odd numbered years. So
In the Six Nations, things like that do matter.
it does.
Things like that do matter. These historical stats, there's reasons for them. All right, second in the table then, Kaylin.
Ireland.
Alan?
France.
Ben?
Scotland.
I don't know. I really don't know. I think Ireland are going to dip, but I just can't see who they're going to lose to other than France.
Scotland, maybe?
I think we might be at Murrayfield, but without Tupelotu, Scott Cummins, and Johnny Gray, there's a question mark over him now. I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
And Finn playing 80 minutes this week,
Maybe
Okay,
we should do
so
that next one.
I'm going to go Ireland to finish second. So third. Now we're getting spicy. Third, Kaylin.
England.
Alan.
Ireland.
Ben.
Ireland.
Scotland.
I love how Hugh has the longest amount of time to think about it, and he still takes the longest amount
I
of time.
I really don't know, because I do think that England have got a great opportunity, but I still haven't said them, and we're about to do fourth. So who's fourth?
Scotland.
Scotland.
England.
England for me. Fifth, I think everyone's going to say the same.
Well,
Italy.
I'm gonna say Wales fifth.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody else saying Wales?
I'm going Wales. Sorry. Yeah, Italy fifth, Wales sixth.
In an audio format, Ben, it's good to vocalize your opinion.
Yeah, likewise, I agree. I ditto.
Yes,
Ben
I
knows where the
agree
money
as
is.
I agree as well. I
The
genuinely
baby maker.
There is a chance that the game against France for Wales goes one of two ways. Either it's not as bad as we're all fearing, and people start duping themselves into believing that things are getting better. Like against South Africa, where everyone thought we were going to take 17, we didn't, and people went, "Oh, that wasn't so bad." Like, no, it was bad. And I think the same could happen in France. I think we could end up losing 36-15, and people go, "That wasn't so bad." Or we could get absolutely hockeyed. It could be like we're Japan or something, and it's absolutely filthy. And I think if it does go like that, I think all Wales fans will just be numb for the rest of the Six Nations, apart from the fact that we're hosting England. And if an incredibly average England team turn up and put 40 on us in Cardiff, no one's going to be happy.
The knives will be out.
Can I ask a question,
together.
Hugh?
Go on.
It's the big question. Does Gatland see the summer?
I think he should. I already think that decision should be made. I don't think he should. If I'm trying to think now, flipping the scenario on its head, what does he have to achieve? He needs to, if he wins 2 games, then he stays.
Yeah,
I
he needs to
agree
win
with
two.
that. I think he only has to come. I think 2 games, win 1, and I think he'll stay. I agree with that.
or one if it's over the right team. Like if he beats Ireland at home, like
Yeah.
Or France in Paris next Friday.
No, if we beat England in Cardiff, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We literally have a song called "As Long as We Beat the English, We Don't Care." That's literally how the song goes.
don't we all?
So yeah, so that's it. So that just leaves the question of what we on this podcast are going to be doing during the Six Nations. And we have a plan. We have the beginnings of a plan. Basically, the cards on the table. Myself and Kaelon do a lot of podcasts, especially me. I am Sand. And we kind of like thinking, what can we do different? Because everyone who does a rugby podcast is going to be doing the same rugby podcast for the next 7 weeks. And
including us, we should say. So if you want that same rugby podcast, come to us.
So we need to think of doing something different. And we thought of something to do different. So it's going to be, if we manage to pull it off, it will be all about line selection. And it will be bespoke about that. And it will be short. It's not going to be a full length hour and a half. It's going to be, we don't know how long it's going to be, but less than half an hour, ideally. So we'll see how that goes. You people who are subscribed will be the first people to know about it. And it was Alan's idea.
I'm going to take credit for this.
The objective independent observer.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you, all our listeners, I get to choose the final selection. There you go.
Tally up.
So perfect. So enjoy that when it's on. So that just leaves me to say thank you to the Rugby ABC. Thank you to everybody for listening. Enjoy your rugby. I hope everybody's team wins. Cheers.
Always a pleasure. Ciao.
That was the United Rugby Rewind. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.